You know, Christian.
Yes, sir.
So we just posted our latest episode a few days ago, and we recorded it before Thanksgiving. It's currently mid-January.
That tells you the current state of affairs for us.
I think we just forgot about it, and it kept getting pushed.
Oh, we're not just hanging out right now? Are we doing something?
Yeah.
Are we recording a podcast?
We're recording a podcast, and it's...
In the world?
And we were talking beforehand, and I felt like something was missing in my life, and I realized it was, because we haven't actually gotten together to record a podcast in about a month, maybe 5 weeks. And it just, it threw off...
It's been longer than that.
Threw off my life, threw off my rhythm. I didn't know who I was anymore.
Yeah. You kind of went through an existential crisis, huh?
Yeah, I stopped drinking. It was terrible.
Whoa. Well, let's get you back. Let's get you back off that wagon.
Yeah, get me back.
You know, actually, something was missing from my life too. I noticed after about 4 or 5 weeks of not recording, and what I found was it was bran. I was missing bran in my life. So I got some more bran. I'm back to being regular, and everything's good.
It's a lot of information. Well, I'm glad that you're
regular.
You're regular.
I appreciate that. Actually, I'm really glad to see you. I have seen you a decent amount since January has started,
at the gym. Yes.
At the gym, on the Instas, in passing in other places because we live close to one another. But it has been some time, and I have missed your glorious face. It is glorious.
Is it?
It is.
But I don't have the glorious facial force like you.
Well, but you adhere to a darker power. The military. Shoot. Okay, not a darker power. A higher power. How about that? You adhere to the military, and they control the facial look.
That's true.
The facial hair.
Yeah, I grow as long as I can, then I have to shave it before my drill weekends.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, we are back. We are going to try and record an episode today, and hopefully it not be complete crap.
Slight crap, not complete.
We're going to try and aim for the quality of episodes that we have had in the past, so sort of crap. That's where we're at. It should be entertaining, at least for us. If it's not entertaining for you, I'm sorry and I don't care.
Yeah, I have no idea what our topics are, but
I do.
More important things. What are we drinking today? I haven't sipped this yet.
Well, do we want to do the
the little intro thing?
The little intro thing.
Yeah, I forgot how this works.
You want to? Yeah, I know it's been some time. So we're gonna get into this whiskey.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into this cigar.
Yeah.
But before we do, let's roll. We are the Old-Fashioned Dad Podcast, seeking to love dads and men through the person and work of Jesus Christ, while entering into tough conversations on marriage, mental health, sex, and parenting, all while sipping good whiskey. And we're back. We got whiskey.
Indeed.
We got a cigar. Actually, it's been some time since I've actually had a cigar. How about you?
Brown whiskey. Yeah, it's since late December. Like 3 weeks.
I almost didn't recognize what this brown log in my fingers is, and this brown. No, I'm just kidding. The brown liquid I definitely recognized. It's been it was a holiday season that I wish I could say was merry and full of joy.
Was it not for you?
It was full of drama.
Yeah,
it's full of drama.
Family stuff.
I don't know if you know about what's going on currently in America or the rest of the world.
No, what's happening? There's something going on?
Okay, let me clue you in a little bit. Okay, so there's these things. It rhymes. It kind of rhymes with Maxine. Vaccine. That's it. Vaccines. Vaccines. So there's these things called vaccines, and if you have them, you are among the righteous.
Yes, you are holy.
If you don't have them, you are among the heathen lepers that should be cast out into the darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth.
At least in Seattle. Around the rest of the country, you wouldn't even know there's a pandemic happening in some places.
I don't know.
I'm envious.
That is true. Mostly like Arizona, Florida, Texas.
Everywhere I've traveled outside of here.
Idaho.
North Carolina, Texas.
Western Washington is really making themselves an island of oasis. Wait, is oasis the right word?
No.
An island of hell. How about that?
Like that? So that ruined your Christmas?
It did. The vaccines and the vaccine debacle, debate, whatever you want to call it, created division and drama. So there was family members that were if you have the vaccine, we're not hanging out with you. And if there's family members that if you don't have the vaccine, we're not hanging out with you.
What? I've never heard anyone be like, "You're vaccinated, I'm not hanging out with you." Is that more of a political statement?
I don't know, man. I really don't know.
Doesn't make
My
sense.
brain was fried at that point. I didn't have any more bandwidth or capacity to engage it or entertain it. I just said, okay, cool. So
Sounds not cool, but that sucks. I'm sorry.
So the family and I, we just had Christmas alone.
Okay, your immediate family.
My immediate family.
You and the girls.
Me and my wife and my 2 girls, and then with my wife's sister and brother-in-law, we, for all those out there, I'm unvaccinated. I'm coming out unvaccinated.
Unclean. Shame.
I'm sorry.
Shame.
I'm unvaccinated, so nobody wants to be around me. Though I've had Rona, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm sure you got you're probably more immune to it at this point than the vaxxed, but
the Rona
I'm not a doctor, so.
The Rona and I, well, I don't even think the doctors that are talking about this are doctors. The Rona and I, we're good friends.
Have you listened to the latest episode I sent you?
No,
Z-Dog?
I meant to.
Pretty good.
I meant to.
Pretty good.
My wife's trying to get me to listen to an episode of Joe Rogan where he's interviewing a doctor.
Yes, that doctor is on this podcast.
Okay, she said it was
one of the,
really
He's
good.
one of the 3 doctors that's on this special Z-Dog.
Okay, so then I got a couple of...
Stupid name, but it's much easier than trying to pronounce his actual name.
So I got a couple of episodes of stuff to listen to.
Anyway, I mean, I don't think this episode's about vaccines and the Rona, but
you never know.
if you check out Z-Dog on YouTube and this podcast, it's probably some of the most science-based and moderate. He's basically like, here's what we know, here's what the data says, here's my opinion, go do what you want. So he's very libertarian in his outlook. He's like, people should be allowed to do what they want, especially considering the science has come out that vaccine, not vaccine, it really doesn't change transmission rates.
You know what I love, and this is really just a rant, and then we'll get back on track.
Okay.
Is the CDC came out along with a couple of doctors on CNN, because CNN's really trustworthy, I think.
No agenda at all.
I think.
Yep.
I usually consult them first thing in the morning for breakfast. What should I eat, CNN? And said that face masks are, unless they're like KN95 or N95, they're just nothing more than facial decorations.
Sure. And I think a number of people have kind of thought that since the beginning.
A lot of people have
Science
thought
is
about
good to actually back that up, 2 years into it, but
I'm kind of curious though. I have to wonder. Have you seen around Seattle? I don't know if this is in other parts of the country. Around Seattle, anyways, it is the people that put up signs here in this house. We believe that science is real, and
Don't get me going.
we believe love is love.
right.
I'm
kind of all the liberal virtue signaling.
Yeah.
They hit all of it.
I'm just kind of curious, about this whole we believe science is real.
Well, they believe. Well, you listen to this podcast and it gives you some good language to kind of be like, oh, this makes sense. Advocacy versus science. This is, science advocacy, where there's an agenda and they cherry pick the data and call that science. And if you're against the science, you're against them, which is what Fauci said, which is about the most unscientific
he is
thing.
science.
But the most unscientific
No,
thing
he
you
is
can say.
Christian. He is science.
He is science embodied.
He is. Jesus was God incarnate. Okay, so we got that.
Okay.
But we got Fauci, which is science incarnate.
Okay. All right. Well,
In science we trust.
Any of you want some more context for this discussion, I'll see if I can post the link.
We're happy
for that particular episode. It's 2.5 hours long, but it's super informative and insightful.
I also want
And
to
not fear-based, which is amazing.
a little bit of gear shifting here, or shifting. I do. This was on the top of or somewhere in the back of my brain. I was like, I should mention this in a podcast. We have our very own first troll.
We do?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, we've made it.
Yeah.
And we're not even on Twitter.
No.
It's amazing.
No. We're this little hick backwater podcast in the Pacific Northwest. Who cares? But we got our first troll.
Oh, you're talking about us. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're calling names to our troll already?
But we got our first.
Power.
Well, yeah. We got our first troll. I was really rather taken back for a second, just for a second.
Yeah.
But this troll, they it was mostly on Instagram, but had their logo. It was like a skull, and and maybe some crossbones, and like no other identifiable information about them, because I mean that's generally what you do as a troll.
A troll account.
Yeah, that's what you do. Like you got nothing better to do other than troll people whose beliefs you don't really agree with.
Sure.
But they were trolling me for the Merry Christmas stuff and certainly the abortion stuff. So this sounds like a really happy individual. Oh, yeah. We're gonna pray for you, buddy, whoever you are, or girl.
You're assuming they actually listen.
Or non-binary. I don't know. Whatever you are. We'll pray for you. We pray that Jesus melts your cold, dead heart.
Whoa. Hey, speaking of cold, dead hearts, what whiskey are we drinking? This is pretty tasty.
I got off on a tangent there. I'm sorry.
That was quite the 10 minute intro tangent. So if
you're
still with us,
it was
we
good.
have a topic to talk about.
It was good. Dude, Just Thinking goes like an hour in their intro, but they're just thinking.
Yeah, but they're levels above us.
I don't know. We're on par with them. We are drinking a delicious bourbon that I haven't spent a ton of time with.
Bourbon. But
it's called the Mattie Gladin. Let me see if I can pull it up here and give a good old boop right there. The Mattie Gladin. Bourbon whiskey, 55% corn, 35% rye, 10% malts.
Respect the grain.
So that, if my math is right, that only works out to 95% on the mash bill. So where's that? What's the other 5%?
Don't ask what the other 5% is.
Yeah, I guess.
Secret ingredients.
I guess that's what it is.
Double pot distilled.
Double pot distilled.
I just like the old timey branding.
So it's distilled with pot. No, wait, I got that backwards. Double pot distilled. So this is out of I want to say, Illinois. That could be Indiana. It's out of Indiana. And it is a brand called, it's kind of a tongue twister a little bit. Spirits of French Lick.
French Lick?
Yeah, but there's some history behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some history behind it. I used to know some of the history, but...
Is it interesting history? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
You don't remember?
I do not remember. My brain can only hold so much. Remember, I counsel for a living, so my brain only holds emotional content. Yeah, it doesn't really hold anything else. Okay, so... Whiskey's good. What are we smoking? You're smoking something.
It's a Standard and Twain, right?
Standard and Twain. Thank you, buddies. Buddy. Actually, it's one guy.
Buddy.
Little. I did watch Son-in-Law over the holiday break.
Oh,
yeah, it was good.
We
saw. I love it. But we are smoking some Standard and Twain. Love Standard and Twain and all that they do. Again, if I haven't mentioned it before, which I know I have. It's a cigar subscription package. They send you a bunch of cigars. They put QR tags. There we are. QR tags on them. The one I'm smoking is 114. So you go and make your decision what the cigar tastes like.
What am I smoking? You lost the tag?
113?
Oh.
Something like that.
You just made that up?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I don't remember. Well, the three cigars they sent me were tag 99 and then tag 114, and then I was like, I don't...
Whatever this is?
Yeah, whatever that is.
You just know I'm not going to look it up, so it doesn't matter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good, whatever it is. I appreciate it. I appreciate your package, buddy. Thanks for sending them.
Standard and Twain, we love you. Okay, we should probably get into the topic, huh?
Yeah, I'm kind of falling asleep here.
Man, just shooting this thing down.
You're boring me.
Don't you think our banter is enough to keep people on?
I hope so.
We know at least one person who likes our banter.
So. Are you serious?
Okay, so I was doing some Bible reading. Do you Bible read?
I read the Bible. Sometimes I have the Bible read to me. Like on the drive.
Yeah, I like that method.
On the drive to drop my son off at school, do like the devotional.
Okay.
Out of the U version.
Yep, that's what I do.
Yeah, actually doing the year, Bible in a year, which we've never actually done before.
Hey, we're doing it too. You want to join us?
It's good. Well, I mean, I don't know. Can you join halfway through? Jenny and I are doing it. We're about 5 days behind, but.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't want you then. You bunch of heathens. So I was doing my Bible study recently. I'm in Exodus right now, like 5th chapter, 6th chapter, something like that. But a couple weeks back when we thought we were going to record, but I got sick. Everybody. It might have been with the Rona, it might have been the flu, I don't know. But I came across the well-known passage on the Tower of Babel. Yeah, you familiar with that story?
The Babel, yes.
Yeah.
I think I had some notes on this.
Too
bad I didn't know we were talking about it. I would have brought it.
Hopefully it shows up. I think you do better off the cuff.
Probably.
Okay. So the story reads that everybody at the time came together and decided, well, let's build a really large tower that goes...
A huge phallic symbol to the heavens. That's not where you're going with this?
Goes... They erected a huge tower up to heaven, right? You know,
it's going downhill fast.
And that presumes that this thing was on track going uphill at some point.
What? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The episode, yeah, I got you.
But they're building this huge tower, and I think that there's this language that's used in the passage. God says, "Let's go down and see what they're doing." And I always thought that was kind of interesting language. Let's go down and see what they're doing.
You know, that's what I say to my son when I know he's up to something no good.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Let's go see what he's up to.
They're kind of quiet down there. Let's go check it out. So which I think is interesting language, because God, you know, he's everywhere.
Sure.
He knows what's going on.
Sure. It's like when he checked in on Adam and Eve.
Hey, guys.
Where are you?
Where are you?
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I know you ate that apple.
Yeah.
Just come on. Come clean. Any rate, so God comes down and he looks at what the human beings have been able to do. I don't know how big that tower got, but it certainly got God's attention. You know, like, so he says, whoa, okay, if the humans can come together, collaborate at this extensive level, you know, there's no stopping them.
Can I see your notes on this? I feel like I wrote something in there that was
I don't have any
profound.
notes.
Yeah, do you have access to the shared notes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So God comes down and he says, okay, we need to disband all the humans. We need to confuse their language because we don't want them working together like this, collaborating and creating something. And so, you know, there's interesting points, because essentially what God is doing is he's like staving off like collective evil. You know, that could be really, really bad. And he's saying, like, we can't have human beings all on the same page, collectively working together. But there's something bigger that is happening here in the Tower of Babel that I was like, why does God make this a point? Like, who cares if a building is put up that goes all the way up into like the stratosphere? You know, like, what's the point? Like, why did God care so much?
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, okay, I got to read some commentary on this. And so I, read the ESV commentary, and that's the, as Virgil would say on the Just Thinking podcast, the Elect Standard Version, Bible.
It's the only correct version.
Yeah, I don't know about any other
Yeah.
ones. Yeah. So what was the big deal? So the ESV said, okay, God had a problem with this, because what it showed was humans deciding to be independent from God.
Sure. Their pride basically said, if we're able to do this, we don't need God.
Yeah. It's kind of the height of hubris.
Sure. It's kind of what science has become to some, kind of the backbone of humanism these days,
Right. Like God is whatever we decide God is, and oftentimes God is us.
Right. Or an antiquated idea that we don't need because we have science.
Right. Yeah. Like, God didn't create science,
right.
or
Look
whatever.
at all the stuff that we did. We're amazing.
Right. So the Tower of Babel shows our sin again. So similar in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve said, yeah, God, you didn't really say that. That's cool. I'll eat that apple. Did you really mean not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Did you really mean that? Did you really think that we wouldn't do that? So they did. Okay, so the Tower of Babel is just a continuation of human beings' desire to be independent from God.
Sure.
But so that led to another question: is like, why is it so wrong to be independent from God? What do you think?
I mean, I like the question you posed to me originally.
Okay.
That kind of got me back in my heels, where I'm like, where are you going with this? What do you mean by that? Do you want to ask that question?
I do.
Or do you have that planned for later?
I'm just kind of seeing how things play out.
Okay, we'll see how it plays out. Why do I... What's the question? How?
What's so wrong with being independent from God? What's wrong with showing your independence?
Well, I mean, the whole call of the gospel is dependence on God, coming back to God, coming back into relationship with God, mending the broken relationship between us and God.
Okay. Yeah. So you see right from the get-go that all of life is completely dependent upon God for existence.
Yeah.
Like we're inextricably linked to God.
Well, I mean, you got that in a philosophical, theological manner, but you also, in my opinion, think, as a non-scientist, I've heard it described before like...
I see you as a scientist.
Well, I appreciate that. A Christian scientist?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, we have science and we have knowledge of certain things, right?
Yeah.
Like atomic structure,
yep.
and break that down into quasars and all this stuff.
Subatomic particles.
We know that the electrons and the positive and negative hold together and stuff, but we don't know why. We don't know how it works. Like we know it works. We know atoms are there, but we don't actually understand why an atom holds together.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever seen an atom? I've met a guy named Adam, but I've just never seen an atom.
Not with my naked eye, because they're small, itty bitty.
Okay, so you kind of trust that they're there.
Sure, whatever matter is made up of. My point of this is, while we have science to help explain the what, the why is still not answered, and even the what is severely limited, because we may know that atomic structure and neutrons have this polarity and electrons have that, but we don't really know why. We don't know why gravity works. We don't know why atoms hold together. We don't know why everything in creation doesn't just burst apart, randomly. And I think, to your point,
God's holding it all together.
God's holding it all together. Like if he stopped willing it to hold together, there's nothing naturally holding creation together. I mean, that's kind of my... I've heard it from much smarter people than me who could probably get into the science of the things we don't understand.
That sounded pretty smart.
But I think that's interesting because we tend to think that it's just like a ethereal theological concept. But I think it's very practical too. Yeah.
So I think this is a good point that we need to establish first and foremost in this topic, in this discussion where we're headed, and eventually where we want to end up, is that all of life, physically, emotionally, relationally, scientifically,
spiritually,
psychologically, whatever big $3 word we can throw in there,
yes,
is absolutely 100% connected to God,
yep,
and cannot be disconnected.
Right, and dependent whether or not you acknowledge it.
Right. Like you don't see animals, animals are completely dependent upon God for their provision. But we're like the only things in all of God's creation that seems to have the ability to accept or reject God, to not be dependent upon God. Even though we might exercise we don't want you, God, doesn't actually mean that all of a sudden God's gonna just kill us right on the spot and prevent us from existing.
Sure. I mean, made in His image, we're really the only thing in creation that has free will.
Do we do air quotes on this?
Yeah, free will.
Free will, air quotes.
In the sense of determining our destination, not just being subject to our
right,
impulses and
right,
what do you call it? Animals? They're instincts.
Instincts. Yeah.
So I mean, we have instincts, but we're higher than animals because we've got cognitive ability to override those instincts and not just kill each other for the food that someone else has.
Good point.
I mean, not that I'm not above that, but if it comes down to it, but.
So we have this established that God's in everything in life, and we cannot get away from it, and we're absolutely dependent upon God despite our desire for independence and autonomy. Okay, so the question that I originally posed to you when thinking about this topic after doing my devotions was, what does the Tower of Babel and the internet have in common? Yeah. Yeah. Because
it's either a really smart question or a really dumb question.
It could be a really dumb question.
There's a fine line.
It could be a really dumb question. It could be so dumb that it's smart.
Oh, it's profound.
Well, okay, so thinking about the Tower of Babel, how many thousands and whatever years ago it was, that has no bearing on us. Right? It doesn't affect the way that I live.
That's the temptation, sure.
No, I mean, it doesn't. These people did this thing. They did a thing, and they built something. God didn't like it, came down, destroyed it, and scattered them across the planet. Okay, great. How does that affect me in the year 2022?
unless it's a rhetorical question, I will answer your question with an answer.
Well, it's a discussion, so by all means, answer.
Human nature hasn't changed. And the same pride that led them to believe they can be independent of God and build greatness together, the same thing that, led us to build, the internet and everything else that leads us to think that, all of the world's information and knowledge is been democratized and is available to pretty much anyone who has internet connection.
Yeah. So if you look at, maybe there's a better example or better comparison that's out there. I haven't found one, when looking at the Tower of Babel, because really what I'm comparing in the Tower of Babel is the collective work and the collective skill that went in and intelligence that went into building this thing. The
collaborative
efforts, that everybody came together to do this thing to benefit themselves, not to glorify God. So you look at the internet. How long has the internet been around? It's like the 70s? Maybe a little longer than that?
I mean, in its relatively current form, late 90s.
Yeah, okay, so where it's more commercialized and consumer-based, right?
Yeah, it's visual, it's not just, text chat rooms and stuff, yeah.
Right, and kind of the impetus or the catalyst for the internet was to connect everybody, right?
I mean, originally it was created by, DARPA to connect, for kind of government and schools.
Military used it.
Military, I think it was done in conjunction with DARPA, which is military, the research branch of the DoD, and schools for communication.
Okay.
I don't remember all the details, but yeah, back in the late 70s, it was kind of the original connection of it.
Right.
So branched out for commercial purposes and stuff.
Right. So what have we seen? What have we seen with the internet? Like what do we get to this day? What do we get with the internet?
Instant gratification and information that already agrees with what we want to believe.
We get that. We get to hear our voice in an echo chamber.
Yes, we get cute cat videos.
Oh, that is true. That is true. I couldn't live without that.
Yeah.
Sometimes dog videos too.
Yeah, it's pretty essential.
Yeah, that is essential. Yeah. But
loss of productivity.
But how often, when you sit down and use the internet, are you thinking, man, I'm going to get ready to glorify God right now? There's my answer.
I mean, to be fair, I typically don't think in those terms unless I'm like...
Because you're a heathen, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. Unless I'm getting ready to do my morning devotion or pray for my family, or I'm about to lose my mind over my kid and I've got to center myself and be like, okay, God, I need you. What's going to come out of my mouth is not going to be good.
Yeah.
Curb my heart.
Direct me to a place on the internet that will change my heart.
Well, I wasn't really thinking internet. I was just thinking moments in my day where I'm consciously thinking, I'm seeking God and what He wants.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. To be, in complete honesty, when I sit down and I use the internet, which is literally every moment of my life.
Sure. There's no such thing as getting online anymore. We just all are all the time.
Yeah, all the time. I don't consciously, be like, hey, I'm hoping that my internet usage right now is going to glorify you, God. I don't do that, because it's become so ubiquitous with life.
Sure.
But I use the building of the internet in comparison with the building of the Tower of Babel. It's like we've collectively come together to do this thing to show our greatness and to show our more of our independence on. Independence from God. It's not to say that God hasn't somehow been, I think God's in everything. So He allowed the internet to be created to begin with. But you see more bad that's happening with the internet than I think you see good. Unless I'm wrong.
I mean, I don't know if that's... I mean, I guess if you chalk up the percentage of the internet that's exclusively porn sites, it is over 50%, but as far as internet content. But so I guess you could make the point there. So I'm kind of thinking, you're kind of making the comparison between the Tower of Babel and that being man trying to kind of replace God or doing something great to elevate themselves to a place of God. And so to me that seems like a very intentional, hey, let's do this thing and show how great we are. And I'm not sure the internet was that so much. I think it maybe have created, turned into that over 30 years. But I don't know if that was like the intent from the get-go.
But I think, okay, so if you go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and this is maybe some of and I appreciate you saying that, because I think this is where I'm articulating my point, is that our hearts are never bent towards God to begin with.
Not naturally, no.
No, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you have an entire career field, a tech field, right? That there's more worship of their digital prowess, and what they can accomplish and who they can connect. Like you have Facebook, who's rebranded as Meta, and
it's a Meta,
and Zuckerberg has been forthright in wanting to create the first church of the metaverse.
Okay.
Have you heard about this? Whatever, right?
Whatever. Where
he wants to combine the digital sphere with reality and make the two very synonymous, like together. Like there's no distinction between the two.
Sure.
Yeah. And so, anywho, what I see is godlessness, right? What I see is godlessness being exercised in the continual building of the internet, which I think, if you go back to the Tower of Babel, and this is just speculation, I don't think anybody consulted God on that one. I don't think anybody was like, hey, should we talk to God? He created us. Like they had more of a knowledge of God back then because it was like still very close to creation. That they didn't go, hey, maybe we should go talk to God about it if we should do this. Because ultimately what God was doing was he was coming down and he was checking their hearts. And like if he had found somebody that was like righteous and his heart was towards him, I think God would have maybe potentially stayed his hand or something like that. You see examples of that in the Bible where God's like, hey, if there's somebody righteous, I'm not gonna execute judgment on this. But God comes down, he executes judgment because their hearts were not inclined or bent towards God. They wanted to be God. And I think, and maybe this is a real foolish argument that I'm making here, but I see parallels here. And it's my podcast, and it's your podcast, so we can do this.
Mostly yours, but okay.
You just show up because you're the pretty face?
You said it.
Pretty face. But I see more often than not within the continual evolution, we'll call it that, I guess, continual evolution of the internet is godlessness, where there's not a heart to glorify God. In the building of this, it's more to glorify man and man's intellect and man's power.
I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna kind of.
You gonna disagree with me on that one?
I'm gonna push back.
All right, that's fair. That's why I like these episodes.
I think it's like anything else in creation. Like what's our calling? What's God? What did God call Adam and Eve to?
Not eat that apple.
Well, that was the one thing he told them not to. What was their? What's the?
Steward creation. Steward all of creation.
Right. And what does that mean?
Well, in that context, in their specific time, it was take care of the garden, take care of the relationship with each other, and be mindful and glorifying of the relationship with God.
Right. But does that mean, because I think I'm going to go off on, I don't know if it's a tangent, but let's take, for example, they lived, according to the Bible, lived, like 900 years or something, right?
Adam lived like 900 and some odd years.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think that they continued living in loincloths and, didn't think in, 900 years to like develop technology and steward God's creation by developing? Because like culture, like the root of culture is to cultivate, right? To take God's raw creation and do something with it. And so it's very likely they built like houses, out of trees or whatever, and figured out ways to do stuff. And we throughout humanity have taken that, and now we've got cities and vehicles and planes, and all that stuff, because I'd say it's part of the common grace of whether or not you love Jesus. We have this innate desire to cultivate, to build, to explore.
Which I think is the heart of God that's in us.
Right. And so I think what you see in the internet is like what you see in anything. You could look at, the egregious egregious examples of big businesses that are terrible to employees and are always trying to screw people over and say, see, business is evil, capitalism is evil.
Yep.
Or you could look at the other ones run by Christians or people that care about people more in the bottom line, which ironically tends to lead to a better bottom line if you actually take care of people and take care of customers, before you think about yourself. So, I mean, I think like anything else, the internet could be developed or used to either glorify God or to try to replace God and pursue evil.
Okay. No, and that's an excellent point. Like, because I think what you're getting at is like these are tools, right?
There's nothing inherently good or evil about the tool of the internet.
Right. My point is that what humans touch
tends to go bad.
Sure. Absolutely,
sure.
Tends to go bad.
Sure.
We tend to have the great ability to manipulate negatively. We have the great ability to use and abuse our fellow brethren, and I think that the tools that are provided to us oftentimes amplify that kind of abuse and use and manipulation. And so I'm using the internet, I guess, to talk more about, it's such a huge tool that we all use, right? And maybe for like you and I, we're not looking to, use and abuse anybody with it, and we may not also necessarily be looking to glorify God with it,
sure.
but maybe more the issue as we, talk about this is we're really talking about the heart of man. We're really talking about the heart of humans, sure. And God gave, God allowed us the intellect to build cars, right? Are cars evil? No, they're not evil.
Some of them are. The Prius, evil.
The Subaru Forester.
Hey, shut up. I have an Outback. It's unsafe.
Oh, yeah. Outbacks can go through volcanoes and still be fine.
Probably.
Yeah. But we're dealing with like the heart of man and the tools that we're allocated and how we use those tools. And so, God gives us intellect to steward. God gives us the capability to love to steward, and God gives us the ability to be in relationship to steward. And you see in the Tower of Babel, again, maybe I'm making a very loosey-goosey argument here, but I don't think God would have come down and destroyed the Tower of Babel and scattered everybody if their hearts weren't in the right place in using their collective intellect. Okay, so when we come to the internet, again, I'm making the argument about
God's going to destroy it.
God's going to destroy it, maybe eventually.
Scatter their languages.
Yeah, but I think it's a digital Tower of Babel. We glorify ourselves in the usage of the internet. We glorify ourselves maybe collectively, and we are okay thinking anyways that we are independent from God. And I think that does show up in the way that we use the internet, because there's so much that we can do with the internet. We don't think to ourselves like, wow, thank you, Lord, that you've given us the ability to create these communication patterns to where I could send an email to somebody in Australia and they'll get it and they'll respond back, in an hour maybe. We have a tendency to focus on us as being God and us as being independent from God and autonomous. That's, I think, the direction I was going.
Okay.
Was that good? Was that all right?
Scrap the whole episode. It's garbage.
Sucks.
We got there. So what I guess with your claim, your hypothesis, I mean, where does that leave us? I mean, what I'm hearing is God scattered the language, destroyed the Tower of Babel because of the hearts of men were set to glorify themselves and replace God and not be dependent on Him, essentially.
Yeah.
And you're basically saying the internet is the biggest thing that we have in the 21st century? What's the
21st century, yeah. We're not quite to the 22nd century yet.
Yeah. The biggest icon of that heart of independence from God. And so you think it should be destroyed. Maybe not the last one, maybe we're not saying that, but...
I don't think it should be destroyed, but why I bring it up, even to begin with, right? Because, again, coming back to, we're a couple of dads. We're a dad podcast, and we're focused on dads.
A couple dads?
I could be a mom. I don't know.
Hey.
I trust in science.
Do we need to do an episode on gender?
I think we do.
Do we need to do the science behind it?
I do trust in science.
We might be losing Christians.
Maybe. But we are dads here. We are trying to be faithful dads, and we are trying to be faithful husbands. And so this episode really is about looking at and evaluating the things in our life that God has allowed us to steward. That's a huge theme in this whole podcast. And our dependence upon God. Like, we are created to be dependent upon God. We are not created to be independent from God. And as dads, I think this is a really important message to get into your soul. Like, you want to be a dad, you want to build good kids, right? You want to build a strong marriage. You want to build a family legacy. Well, then that really starts with complete and utter dependence upon God and a heart that's bent that way.
Sure. So you're saying my tendency to use my own skills and strengths and will and sheer determination to do life, and then when that doesn't work, call out to God for help. That's not how it's supposed to be done. God's the last resort. He's supposed to be the first resort. That's what you're telling me. The foundation should be God, not the my life, my way, and then have God as an add-on.
Just because you do something, you work really hard at something, and you are successful at it, doesn't automatically mean that somehow you acknowledged God and glorified God in the matter.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So let's see if I can formulate this into coherent words.
Sweet.
Is there a way, since we're talking about the heart of man and our tendency to try to live independent of God, do you have a good test for, like, is the foundation of my life actually God, or am I using God as a means to get what I want in life? Is there like red flags or like steps or something? And I ask this because in the back of my head, we do this podcast. I'm a Christian. Like, I try to be humble and open and honest about my motivation for, like, why I do things, and if I'm doing them for selfish reasons or the right reason. And something in the back of my head says, am I just pursuing successful business because I want the comfort and ease comes with money? Am I just trying to be a good dad so that I'm not embarrassed when my son's in public with our friends? Like there's something in the back of my head that wonders, is my motivation right? Is my foundation of my life really based on God? Or am I just kind of using him as a means to try to get what I want? Because and as Christians, I don't think we should, like, fully trust our hearts. And there's something in me that's like, I'm wary of that. Like, I don't fully trust my heart, my motivation, which maybe keeps us in a healthy place. I don't know. It's just kind of my bearing it all there.
Yeah, well, let me answer your question with a question.
Oh, boy.
I know, right?
It's a true psychologist manner.
I know, right? When was the last time you did something authentic for your wife where it didn't directly, benefit you?
Yesterday.
What'd you do?
I did the dishes when I'd rather have gone to bed.
And why'd you do it?
Because I knew that it would be a good start to her day, and I have to get up and I got dishes to do. Okay.
And you were okay that there wasn't going to be any tangible benefit outcome to doing the dishes?
To get something, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I like this. Keep this up. It's making me look good.
Yeah. So I think marriage is always a great example of how to look at our relationship with God.
Okay.
So that moment, that example that you're talking about, like, I did the dishes for my wife, and I did it because I wanted her day to start right. I wanted her to have one less thing that she had to focus on. Mm-hmm. I didn't want her day to be necessarily inconvenienced, by the thought, like, oh, I got to come home, I got to do dishes, and then I got to, maybe, prep dinner and stuff like that. You're like, in your mind, however you went about it, I want to take this one thing off of my wife's list, mm-hmm. and I have plenty of things I got to do. I have plenty of things that I got to work through. And you said, hey, I'm just going to go do this at my own expense. And the expense really is like time. And maybe
sleep, maybe. I don't
yeah,
know.
and maybe I don't know, maybe anything else that you maybe wanted to do or could have done.
Sure.
You know. That's the sort of attitude that I think we should be coming to God with on literally everything in our life. Does that make sense on how I'm phrasing that? Like, okay, so God, I want to serve you. I want to serve you in the same way that I served my wife in this. I want to know you in the same way that I knew my wife in this example. My goal was simply to serve and love my wife. There was no other goal. That was it.
Sure.
And so I think that when it comes to thinking about our job or thinking about what are some other things that we have to navigate, parenting, I guess. I'm trying to think of any finances.
Being a good friend, finances, money, income.
Yeah, I think that we don't know, again, our own hearts, like you said. We don't know our own hearts and our own proclivities. We always think that we're probably being better than we actually are. But we don't seek God and really to know God when it comes to a friendship or when it comes to our marriage or parenting or anything like that. We just assume that because we're Christians, because we read the Bible, because we go to church, because we say the prayers, that we're automatically just knowing and seeking God. But, like, you can know a lot about God and not know God.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, knowing God is not like knowing facts and being able to recall verses and theological concepts.
Right. For me to call somebody a friend, I got to spend time with them. I got to be around them. I got to know what they're about. And for the friendship to continue, there's got to be depth.
Sure. You got to make time for it. You got to prioritize it.
Right. And so God gives us all these different things to steward and be in charge of. But I think what He calls us to do is know Him the way in which you served and knew your wife regarding dishes.
Yeah.
Because that was your only... You knew your wife enough to know that would bless her. I would venture to say many wives would be blessed, if their husbands came and did the dishes. Like last night, my wife was cooking dinner, and she started doing dishes. We just got our dishwasher fixed today, so our dishwasher's been out for 3 weeks, and she was like slaving over the hot stove, and she'd been working all day, and she was making a delicious meal, and then she just started doing dishes, and I look up and I was like, that doesn't feel right. I worked hard yesterday. I've been working real hard at a lot of the different jobs I've been doing, and I said, you know what? Let me do that. Let me handle that for you. Because you went out of your way to serve me, and that was a real blessing to me. Now I want to bless you. Now I want to know, and I just want to bless you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do the dishes for you. And so, like, God wants us to do that on all the things that we're doing. Like, and if that's our motive, honestly, I don't know how we can go wrong in the areas in our life.
Sure. I know I've mentioned this in prior episodes, but I'm assuming that most of our listeners have not systematically gone through and listened to all of our episodes. One of the things that really stuck out in my pre-marriage counseling that I did with Jenny, really the only thing I remember, was talking about if both of us have a heart disposition of I'm going to outlove and outserve the other person, that's going to take care of the majority of issues and conflicts that come up between spouses traditionally.
Yeah.
Because most conflicts come up because I'm thinking about myself and my, the rights I perceive myself to have, and it's not fair, and I'm doing more work, and whatever else. But if I'm thinking, how can I love and serve the other person? They're thinking the same thing. I mean, it's going to be pretty beautiful. That's just a little nugget. That's free. No charge for that. The other thing I was thinking about is you're talking about kind of us not really trusting ourselves and humans typically thinking that we're better than we are. Yeah. And it's interesting, in my experience, I've observed that, that's kind of the default, human nature, right? The sin nature. It is. We think that we're better than we are. But it's funny, like, as you become a Christian and as you become a more mature Christian, And I think God, pulls back those layers on your real motivation of your heart, and you're able to be more honest with what really drives you and what's really motivating you. It flips. You're like, no, most of the things I do have bad motivation behind them, and I need God all that much more. And so it's just funny, like, as we become more dependent on God, become more honest about who we really are, and our identity can be more secure in God, as opposed to the less we know God, our identity is more in ourselves and our ability and how good we think we are.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the longer that we walk with Christ, the sanctification happens, right? And through that sanctification, what happens is we become more aware of how much we need Christ, and we become more dependent upon Christ.
Exactly.
And we end up seeing how little, like in terms of material stuff, and maybe even just, in terms of maybe codependency on relationships, how much, we really need. Because what God is out to show us is like, I'm everything you need. I'm absolutely everything you need.
Sure.
Like, you think you need that 6-figure income. I am sufficient for you.
Right.
You think you need, X amount of kids, or maybe not that many kids. Right. I am sufficient for you. Like, it's such counterintuitive thinking. It doesn't even make sense. It's like somebody asking, the mathematical question, hey, what's 3 plus 3? And, we would normally go 6, but in God's economy, it's like something completely different. Like, or maybe that's really bad.
Yeah, you lost me on that one, but
well,
hopefully it makes sense to someone out there.
Yeah. Sometimes I just talk, and hopefully it makes sense. But in God's economy, like, the answers that we think are right aren't always right.
Sure. It's if we're doing things based on our own human reasoning and logic and sense of morality, oftentimes it's not going to make sense. You see that in Scripture repeatedly. You see that in people that are faithful to God. Like, they're doing things that don't make sense. As far as like, if your goal is to like live your best life and make the most money and be safe and secure, God's always calling us to things that are going to put us, make us uncomfortable and make us dependent on Him, and the things He's calling us to aren't going to be successful on our own strength. It's only going to be successful by relying on Him.
To come back to I think what kind of kicked off this part of the conversation, and maybe to add a litmus test or what have you. If you really want to know if your heart is inclined towards God in all areas of your life, just every day wake up and pray, Lord, make me humble. And that is one prayer that I have found in my life that God is very quick to answer. And you will find out very quickly in your response to that humility, to the things that make you humble, how inclined you are to God and how dependent upon God you are.
Sure.
That, to me, that would be the litmus test. If you find yourself going, God, I really want to be more like Christ, and I really want to be humble, I really want to be dependent upon you, can you please make that happen? God's like, yep, I got some opportunities right now for you. Especially if you're a parent, I got some opportunities right now for you. And it's in your response that will show you your level of dependence upon God. That fair?
Yeah, no, I think it's good.
That's fair.
Well, it's a nice little bow on it. Is there anything you want to do to full circle back to the Tower of Babel, or I feel like that was a good kind of note to end on? But
Tower of Babel was about our independence.
We're still struggling with that.
Yep, still struggling with independence. Lots of things in our lives exalt. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Exalt our independence. And as dads, really our goal is not to be independent. Our goal is to not grind out life and make life happen. We're not trying to be mini. Yeah, go ahead. You look like you had a thought.
I had a thought.
Go for
it. Well, it's interesting because we're kind of talking, almost exclusively about being dependent on God, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But it's funny, like, as God makes us more dependent on Him, I think He also opens up the realization that there's a larger dependence that we're called to. Because, like, I don't know if we've talked about it, but, like, I'm a strong believer you can't be a solo Christian. You can't be a.
That's right.
I mean, you could be a Christian and not go to church and
not really smart.
have. Yeah, but you're gonna be stunted.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You're not gonna be thriving in your faith with God.
Yep.
And I think it's because God very intentionally designed us to be in community with our church body, with fellowship, like we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while it's primarily about our dependence on God, I think it's also a realization that we are to be dependent and ask for help and get help from each other.
Yeah, it's one of the vehicles, one of the beautiful vehicles, frustrating but beautiful vehicles that the church body is, right? And there's a reason why that God designed the body the way that He has it, and decided
The body meaning the Big C Church.
Big C Church, that we are in it, because if we're not in it, we're being unwise, and we are being easy pickings for the world, Satan, sin, and death.
Sure, it's like not reading the Bible. It's like eventually you're going to be
spiritually anemic.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be succumbed by the culture of the world and the values of the world, and forget God's truth.
Yeah, your theology will just suck. It'll be terrible. And you won't be able to worship and glorify God, and even
start going like BLM rallies and stuff. It's all downhill.
If you start going to BLM rallies, we're going to have a podcast episode that's admonishing you. At any rate, so as dads, we're calling you dads back to a greater level of dependence.
What about the moms? There's some moms that listen.
Nah, we don't care.
Whoa.
Oh, no, we care. We care. We love you, moms. And we love all you future moms and future dads.
All you youngsters listening?
That's right. My nephew actually listens. He's like 14.
He's like a...
He's an old soul.
He's like a 4-year-old and a 13-year-old. How old is he? 14-year-old? Yeah.
Roman?
I like him.
He's like 40. Yeah, he's like 40 and a 14-year-old.
He's also like stronger than me. It pisses me off. He's like lifting heavier at me than the gym.
But we're calling you guys back to and encouraging a greater level of dependence upon God. Go read Psalm 139. David has a beautiful psalm to God.
Which psalm?
139.
139.
Yeah, and at the end, he's inviting, he's asking God to come in and search and know His heart. And that's what we should be doing every single day when we wake up. We decide that we're going to go dad, and we decide that we're going to go be a husband. I mean, we don't do this of our own power. We don't do this of our own accord. We do this under the power of Jesus Christ, and so that's where we want to anchor ourselves, and that's really where we want to be, and that's really kind of the core of this particular podcast. All the whiskey, the BS, the cigars, the rambling about the Tower of Babel, the internet, all aside.
What about a 10-minute rant at the beginning was?
Yeah, that was a good rant.
Was it?
We're about calling moms and dads and moms, human beings, to just an incredible, supernatural level of dependence upon God, and that's where we want to end up. That is where we want to end up and where we want to be. I don't think I got anything else to say on that.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, like most episodes, I thought it was going to be a
big stinker,
a big train wreck, but it ended up in a good place. It's almost like God's in it or something. It's
providential, fortuitous.
It's a good thing that we're not doing this on our own power, hopefully. Maybe that's a little presumptuous, I don't know. But hopefully you got something out of this.
I prayed to God ahead of time on this podcast, and as the Bible says, God listens to the prayers of the righteous. So I don't know about you, but...
And you.
So... in the meantime, I think it's safe to put a bow on this, close the chapter on this particular episode.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good seeing you. Good being back. I mean, from your guys' perspective, you're just listening to another podcast, but for us, it's good to be back.
We're back. Yeah.
We're back.
I missed this guy's presence. His musk. It's manly.
Well, I haven't showered in a few days, so there you go.
That's why I missed it. Well, until next time, which hopefully will not be very long between recordings. We love you. We care about you. Please do like this podcast. Please do subscribe to this podcast. Please do follow us on this podcast.
Share.
YouTube.
Share this.
Instagram.
Share this with your dad groups, your mom groups, your church. It would be really nice to grow. I mean, it's not all about the numbers.
Yep.
But we do have, I think 12,000 downloads altogether?
We're right around 12,000 downloads.
It'd be nice to scale that a little. And if you find this a blessing or entertaining, to get it out to more people that would also find it entertaining and blessing.
We are blessed by you guys. We've had plenty of people reach out, so we thank you. And we know that God is using this podcast, even if it's in very, very small ways. I'm all right with that. We want to be able to exalt Christ in everything and be dependent upon Him. So, with that said, Christian, we're going to call it good for this evening. Go and enjoy some whiskey.